And so often it falls on semi-deaf ears or resistant ears. It is an exponential shift into a perception of reality that the soul has never known before. So as everyone here can see, it is most useful, is it not, to go right to that spot of heightened vulnerability, right to the heart of it. Bring that place out and offer it for full contact with the mightiest force fields that self can imagine, backed up by tremendous loving support by the masters in the angelic force. In that moment, things change, do they not? They change dramatically, yes. Any questions on this before we go to questions?
How do we identify the most vulnerable spot first?
That is a good question. Does everyone here know what it feels like to feel painfully vulnerable? Yes? Simply follow the discomfort. Yes? Self says, well, I don't mind being vulnerable with my friends over here or my mate or alone, but I would never be vulnerable in such and such a situation. All right? That is the situation. To go, not so much that self need to go into that situation and unconsciously set up an experience where self will feel victimized. Is that part clear? Mm-hmm. Rather, self will go into that, how self holds that internally. So, because it is all part of old programming, is it not? Mm-hmm. So self says, all right, well, this is a situation where those in authority have the power over self. So they have survival power over self. They have the power to destroy self's reputation, destroy self's financial reality, destroy self's stable home life, etc., etc., etc. We're just playing with this particular one, yes? And that is an area of where self feels acutely vulnerable. And self then goes into that and says, well, what was it that created the basis that there is that there would be a situation where who self is, in self's most exposed level, that would be ruined, that would need to be ruined, so to speak, that self would have to be ruined. And then self is able to track that. What are the false beliefs in that? That the false belief that says self is not safe to be all of who self is. Self is will not be provided for on the earth plane while being authentic. Self will be able to have certain aspects, but they will have to be kept hidden from view, etc. All of these false beliefs that tell the story of the soul's journey through many incarnations. So self goes into it and into it, exploring internally this particular place. And every time self explores it, perhaps self says, all right, this is the part where self is shaking. Yes? Mm-hmm. Self says, all right, self's going to write in the journal about this shaking place. And in doing that, self invites the forces, the divine forces, to come in and simply be with self in this shaking place. So self reflects on it, meditates on it, prays on it, writes on it, sings on it, dances on it, sleeps on it, whatever. Self is willing then to allow the forces, the divine forces, to enter in to that shaking place. Already self has released the notion that self cannot allow vulnerability to have greater contact with anything. Self is already inviting the greater forces to make contact with this vulnerable place, internally, first. Otherwise, self would be going out into the world trying to overcome this place of vulnerability by pushing self into apparently dangerous situations. Before self has done the internal work of making the connection with the great forces that be, that allow self to move forth in a totally authentic externalization of self. Is that pretty clear? So therefore self does it internally, every step of the way. When self feels like it is too much to touch, it is too painful, self feels too vulnerable, self must get control, go no, keep it secret, don't tell anyone, fall apart, get under the covers, be overly active, what have you. All compensations, control compensations. Instead self goes into that acute place of vulnerability, so to speak, and invites the forces, the loving divine forces, to come in and make contact. And then self goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And always asking the question, what is the belief system here? What is the belief system that is supporting this notion that self is in danger? And then as the divine forces, and self says, well, what are the divine forces? How does self know whether they're in? Oh goodness. Simply know that everything that makes up self's reality is, shall we say, an expression of the great metaphysical forces that, shall we say, simply hold together this universe and greater universes as well. These are the great forces. They are automatically available, just right in this moment, except that humankind has forgotten that. So allow self to absorb these forces. Just make it up with the imagination. Self is now absorbing forces. Yes. Why not? And then what happens is self realizes that self is absorbing forces. And then what happens is electrically things begin to shift, do they not? And then self is surprised. This is a surprise package. Self is surprised to see the extent of illusion. Self is surprised to see the extent of the illusion falling away. And then self stands in a moment of, shall we say, pronounced disorientation. Because then self realizes that this shall we say, greater self, the self that delights in this essence of vulnerability, that has made made itself available, that is the access point to the greater forces, the forces that sustain creation, that these forces are now available to self. They always have been. It is the recognition of them that ignites that sense of electrical activity in this connection. Is that part clear for everyone? Oh goodness. How's everyone doing with this?
It's difficult.
What was that?
Difficult.
Yes. All right, what makes it difficult?
It makes it difficult to process all of it.
Yes. All right. Allow self to simply, we understand that the channel tells us we talk too quickly. Sometimes we talk quickly for a reason. We are entertaining the mental body, are we not? And while we are entertaining the mental body and giving it something to chew on, we are accessing all the points of vulnerability in each student sitting here. Why? Because each student sitting here gave us permission to do so. When we say we are accessing, we are not accessing it in a pushy way, simply through the agreement that self's higher self, so to speak, gave to the masters to make this contact. So while the mind, the lower mind, is scrambling to make sense out of what is being taught, everything else is relaxed. All the energy goes up into the mind trying to figure it out. The mind starts short-circuiting because the old programming doesn't fit it. Is that part clear? And therefore everything, the system is down, so to speak. When the system is down,